Tomorrow will mark office. It's been a year of challenges, but it's also been a year of enormous progress. We went from 2 million people being vaccinated at the moment I was sworn in to 210 million Americans being fully vaccinated today.
Okay.
Hello, folks. We created 6 million
Ladies and
new
gentlemen,
jobs.
we are live responding to
More jobs
President
in 1 year.
Brandon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
President Brandon.
Tomorrow
Unemployment
will
dropped.
mark
The unemployment rate dropped to 3.9%.
1 year since I took office. It's been a year of challenges, but it's also been a year of enormous progress.
New
We
business
went from
applications
2 million
grew by
people being
30%,
vaccinated at the
biggest
moment I was
increase
sworn
ever.
in.
And for the first time, working
fully
people
vaccinated
actually got a raise.
today. We created
Actually
6 new
got
jobs.
President
More
Brandon
jobs in 1
is
year than
on, and we are going to be live
any time
responding
before.
to President Brandon. He's giving his
Unemployment
opening
dropped.
remarks
The
here.
unemployment
President
rate
Brandon
dropped
does
to
not often
3.9%.
give
We cut health
a
insurance premiums for millions
Child
of
poverty
Americans
does not
down by
often
nearly
give
40%.
a
Biggest
press
drop
conference.
ever in
medical
American
bills
history.
illegal
President Brandon
in this
often
country.
New
runs
business
away
applications
from
grew by
the
30%
press.
that you don't expect.
The biggest increase ever.
And for the first time in a long time, this
We will see
country's
live.
working
Thought you
people
were gonna have to
actually
owe
got a
because the
raise.
consultation
You weren't
actually got a raise.
That
Mhm.
people, the bottom
No more.
40%, their
Saw their
income
income
go up.
The
American
most of
Rescue
all
Plan
those
and other
got
actions
raised.
we've taken. We cut health
seen
insurance
record job
premiums for
creation,
millions of
record
American
economic growth
families,
in
and we
the
just made prize medical infrastructure
this
bill.
country. We're about to make
You know
a
those
record
bills you
investment
get
in
that you don't
rebuilding
expect
America
to
to
take
take
us
us to be number one
$5,000 from hospital
best
beyond
infrastructure in the world.
what you thought you were going to have to owe
Now we're
because of the
way below
consultation
that.
you weren't told was going to
We'll be
cost
creating
that
better
much.
jobs for millions of people,
No more.
modernizing our roads,
They're
our
now
bridges, our
illegal.
highways,
You
our
have,
ports.
Thanks
our
to the American
airports,
Rescue Plan and other
everything
actions
from
we've
Right here.
taken,
You have two different.
We've seen
making
record
clean
job
water,
creation, record
lead
economic
removing
growth
lead in the
pipes.
past year.
That every American
Now,
turn on, every
thanks to the
American can turn on
bipartisan
a faucet and
infrastructure
drink
bill,
clean water.
we're about to make a
Record
record investment in
suburban
rebuilding
communities.
America to take us.
It's gonna
to
make
be
affordable
number
high-speed
one,
internet available
best
to
infrastructure.
On this
in
computer.
urban,
So,
in
you got
rural,
to
and
take it down
urban
and
areas.
Put it back
We've
up.
never
We'll be
done
creating
that
better
before.
jobs for millions of people,
Now we are.
modernizing our
We're in the
roads, our
process of
bridges,
getting
our
that done.
highways, our ports. Still,
Our
for all this
airports.
progress,
I know there's
everything
a lot
from
of frustration,
making
and
clean
fatigue in
water.
this country.
And we know why. COVID-19, Omicron has now been challenging us in a way that it's the new enemy.
Exciting
While it's
times,
cause
ladies and gentlemen,
for
for
concern,
being
It's
live.
not cause for panic.
Here we go.
We've been doing everything
Had a
we
small
can.
audio glitch here, and we are
learning
trying
and
something
adapting
very
as
new
fast
where
as
we
we
listen
can,
to Brandon and we
preparing for a
respond
future
live
beyond the pandemic.
as he is giving
Well, I
his
know
press
that
conference.
after
So,
almost 2 years of
after a
physical,
small audio
emotional,
glitch, and
psychological
ladies
weight
and
of this
gentlemen,
pandemic,
we're just starting
had
here
an
in
impact
our
it's
new
having
and exciting
for many of us,
exciting
it's been
ways
too much to bear.
to go
We're in a
live.
very different place
We're
now.
just starting here. We
We
have
have the tools, vaccines,
Brandon
boosters,
live now without
masks,
duplicate audio.
tests, pills to save lives and keep businesses and schools open. 75% of adults are fully vaccinated. We've gone from 90 million adults with no shots in arms last summer and down to 35 million with no shots a day. And we're adding about 9 million more vaccinations each week. We're going to stick with our vaccination efforts because vaccinations work. So get
Yeah, they're
vaccinated,
unconstitutional.
please, and get your booster. Look, we're
Your
also
approach is
increasing
unconstitutional to
testing.
vaccines.
Should we have done more testing earlier?
You were destroyed in the
Yes.
Supreme Court.
But we're doing more now. We've gone from 0 at-home tests a year ago to 375 million tests on the market in just this month. If you buy a test at a store, your insurance will reimburse you. On top of that, we're making 1 billion at-home tests available for you to order and be delivered to your home. Just visit covidtest.gov to know how to get that free test kit to your home. In addition, there are sites where you can get tested in person for free now. And now we have more treatments that people can, for people to keep people out of the hospital than any other point in the pandemic, including life-saving antiviral pills. We purchased 20 million of these new Pfizer pills, more than any country in the world. The bottom line on COVID-19
There's the first cough.
is that we're in
This
a
is
better
Joe
place
Biden's
than we've
opening
been-
remarks here
have been
before the
thus
press.
far. Clearly better than a year ago. We're not going back to lockdowns. We're not
Yeah,
going
nothing
back
is
to
clearly better than
closing
a year
schools.
ago.
Schools should stay open because the American Rescue Plan,
Death
we
toll up.
provided to states
hospitalizations up.
$130 billion.
Lack of testing.
$130 billion to keep our students and educators safe and schools open.
Death
Funding
toll
for
is
ventilation
larger for
systems in
COVID
schools,
under Brandon than it
social
was under
distancing,
Trump.
hygiene for classrooms and the school buses. In addition, we've added another $10 billion for COVID-19 tests to be able to be administered at schools. And many states and school districts have spent this money very well. Unfortunately, some haven't. I encourage the states and school districts that use the funding to protect
Brandon.
our children and keep our schools open. Use it. The COVID-19 is not up and accept things. It's just not going to go away immediately. But I'm not going to give up and accept things as they are now. Some people may call what's happening now the new normal. I call it a job not yet finished. It will get better. We're moving toward a time when COVID-19 won't disrupt our daily lives.
A job.
Or COVID-19 won't be a crisis, but something to protect against and a threat. Look, we're not there yet, but we will get there. Now, the second challenge we're facing are prices. COVID-19 has created a lot of economic complications, including rapid price across the world economy.
You have created
People see it at the gas
economic
pump.
complications.
So here's what we're going to do. A critical job in making sure that the elevated prices don't become entrenched rests with the Federal Reserve, which has a dual mandate: full employment and stable prices. The Reserve provided extraordinary support during the crisis for the previous year and a half. Given the strength of our economy and the pace of recent price increases, it's appropriate, as the federal Chairman Powell, the Fed Chairman Powell, has indicated, to recalibrate the support that is now necessary. I respect the Fed's independence, and I've nominated 5 superb individuals to serve on the Federal Board of Governors, men and women from a variety of ideological perspectives. They're eminently qualified, historically diverse, and have earned bipartisan praise. And I call on the United States Senate to confirm them without any further delay. And here at the White House, and for my friends in Congress, the best thing to tackle high prices is a more productive economy with greater capacity to deliver goods and services to the American people. And a growing economy where folks have more choices and more small businesses compete, and where more goods can get to market faster. I've laid out a 3-part plan to do just that.
Dude, you
First,
broke the
COVID-19
supply
has had
chain.
a global impact on the economy. When a
Pete
factory
Buttigieg
shuts
took
down
like
and one
2
shops and
for
homes and
paternity
businesses
care.
all over the world are disrupted.
He's the transportation secretary.
COVID-19 has compounded that many
Trains are getting
times
robbed in
over.
LA.
A couple of months ago, in this very room, we heard dire warnings about how the supply chain
Bare shelves
problems
Biden
could
right
create
here.
a real crisis around the holidays. So we acted. We brought together business and labor, and that much predicted crisis did not occur. 99% of the packages were delivered on time, and shelves were stocked. And notwithstanding the recent storms that have impacted many parts of our country, the share of goods in stock at stores is 89% now, barely changed from the 91% before the pandemic. I often see empty shelves being shown on television.
Okay.
89% are full, which is only a few points below what it was before the pandemic. Done.
Oh, this is weak.
Our infrastructure law will supercharge your effort upgrading everything from roads and bridges to ports and airports, railways.
The
and
argument
transit,
is 49,
make the economy move
89% of the
faster
stuff
and reduce
that
prices
should
for
be there
families.
is there.
Second thing, my Build Back Better plan will address the biggest cost
So don't
that
worry,
working families
guys.
face every day. No other plan will do more to lower the cost for American
I
families.
deleted over
Cuts the
10%
cost
of what
for
should be in
childcare.
your stores.
Many families, including the people sitting in this room, if
Why do you
they
think
have
bare
children
shelves
and they're
Biden trends?
full-time, many families pay up to $14,000 a year for childcare in big cities, less than that in smaller ones. My plan cuts that in half. That will not only be a game changer for so many families' budgets, but it will mean so much for the nearly 2 million women who've left the workforce during the pandemic because of things like childcare. My Build
Incredible.
Back Better plan cuts the price.
Big
of
shout out to the
prescription
500
drugs.
people watching on
So
Rumble.
insulin,
Really appreciate all
that
of you. This is our
today
first
costs
Rumble
some people
live.
as much
Our
as
first
$1,000
Rumble
a
live.
month.
God bless all of you.
will
We're
cost no
responding
more than $35.
to Brandon live. This is live right now.
cuts the
This
cost
is
of LPG.
Brandon live, and this is me live
Lowers
right now
energy
listening to him
costs.
with you.
And it will do all this without raising a single penny in taxes on people making under $400,000 a year or raising the deficit. In fact, my plan cuts the deficit and it boosts the economy by getting more people into the workforce. That's why 17 Nobel Prize winners for economics say it will ease long-term inflationary pressure. Bottom line, if price increases are what you're worried about, the best answer is my Build Back Better plan. Third thing we're going to do, promote competition. Look, in too many industries, a handful of giant companies dominate the market in sectors like meat processing, railroad, shipping, and other areas.
Oh, got it.
This isn't a new issue. It's not been the reason
Here
we've
comes the
had high
communism.
inflation today. It's not the only reason. It's been happening for a decade. But over time, it has reduced competition, squeezed out small businesses and farmers, ranchers, and increased the price for consumers. We end up with an industry like the meat processing industry, where 4 big companies dominate the markets. Pay ranchers less for their cattle they grow, charge consumers more for beef, hamburger meat, whatever they're buying. Prices are up. Look, I'm a capitalist, but capitalism without competition is not capitalism, it's exploitation. So I signed an executive order to tackle unfair competition in our economy, and we're going to continue to enforce it, along with working with Congress where we can. I'll close with this.
I'm a
We have
capitalist,
faced some of the biggest challenges that we've ever faced in this country
says the guy
these past few years.
who
Challenges
just
to our
had
public
his
health,
communist
challenges to our economy.
dictates
But we're getting through
to
it.
all private
And
businesses
not only are we getting through it,
struck
we're
down
laying
6-3
the
in the
foundation
Supreme
for a
Court.
future
Got it.
where America wins the 21st century
Got it. He's a
by
capitalist, though.
creating jobs at a record pace.
He's never created a job,
Now we need to get inflation under control.
never
We have
created
developed
a
an
job.
extraordinarily effective
Joe
booster
Biden
shots and
has never
antiviral
once
pills. Now
created
we
a
need to
job.
finish the
Never
job
created a
getting
job.
COVID-19 under control.
Never created a job.
I've long said,
Maybe
it's
the guy
never
who
been a
cleans
good
Hunter
bet
Biden's
to bet
crack
against
pipe.
the American people. Or
Maybe.
America.
Maybe that is
I
a
believe
single
that
job.
more than ever today. We've seen the grit and determination of the American people this past year. But the best days of this country are still ahead of us, not
Got it.
behind us. Now, I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, capital communism. That's exactly right.
Yes.
Okay, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Here are the questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. My colleagues will get into some specific issues, but
All
I
right,
wanted
this
to
is Zeke
zoom
Miller.
out
He's with
on
the
your
AP.
first year in office. Inflation is up. Your signature domestic legislation is stalled in Congress.
Ooh.
In a few hours from now, the Senate, an effort in the Senate to deal with voting rights and voting reform legislation is going to fail.
Look at him smile.
COVID-19 is still taking the lives of 1,500,
Ooh.
and the nation's divisions are just as raw as they were a year ago.
Ouch!
Did you overpromise, achieve in your first year in office?
Did you
And how do you
overpromise?
plan to
Why are you such an optimist? Look,
Wha-
I didn't overpromise.
Why are you such an optimist?
And what I have probably outperformed
He
what
has
anybody thought would happen.
dementia.
The fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where
Shout out to the 2,000 people
we
watching on
have
Rumble.
made enormous progress. You mentioned the number of deaths from COVID. Well, it was 3 times that not long ago.
God bless all you.
It's coming down. Everything's changing. It's getting better. Look, I didn't overpromise, but I think if you take a look at what we've been able to do, you'd have to acknowledge we made enormous progress. But one of the things that I think is something that, one thing I haven't been able to do so
He's made enormous progress.
is get my Republican friends to get in the game of making things better in this country. For example, I was reading the other day, and I wrote the quote down so I don't misquote him. A quote from Senator Sununu when he wasn't going, Governor Sununu, when he decided he wasn't going to run for the Senate in New Hampshire. Here's what he said. They were all, for the most part, content with the speed at which they weren't doing anything. It was very clear that we just had to
He's
hold
reading.
the line for 2 years.
He's reading from a note
Okay.
card.
So I'm just going to be a roadblock for the next 2 years? That's not what I do, Sununu said. He went on to say it bothered me.
Story time
that
with
they were
Dementia
okay
Grandpa.
with that. Then he goes on to say, I said, okay, so
Story
we're not going
time.
to get stuff done if we win the White House back, Why didn't we do anything in 2017 and 2018? And then he said, how the Republican Sununu spoke to answer the challenge? He said, crickets, yeah, crickets. They had no answer. I did not anticipate that there'd be such a stalwart effort to make sure that the most important thing was that President Biden didn't get anything done. Think about this. What
What the
Republicans for?
hell?
What are they for? Name me one thing they're for. And so the problem
for a
here
border
is
wall.
that I think what I have to do.
We're for deportation of
and
criminal
the
migrants.
change in tactic.
We're
if you will.
for a strong
I
dollar.
have to make clear to the American
We're
people
for your impeachment.
what we are for. We've passed a lot.
We're for fighting communist
We've passed
China.
a lot of things that people don't even understand.
We're for standing against totalitarians in Iran.
Remember when we passed?
We're for
the
bringing
Affordable
back
Care
our
Act,
women and children
and
when they serve
everybody
abroad,
thought that,
not in body
it
bags.
really was getting pummeled and beaten, and it wasn't until after we were out of office and that next campaign, your campaign, and I went into I wasn't in office anymore. We went in a whole bunch of districts campaigning for Democrats and Republican districts who said they wanted to do away with health care, with Obamacare. And I started pointing out that if you did that, pre-existing conditions would no longer be covered.
Now he's talking about
I said,
Obama.
huh? We didn't know that. We didn't know that. And guess what? We won over 38 seats because we had explained to the people
Can you
exactly
seeing this on quality?
what, in fact, had passed.
Chat.
Now, one of the things that our President Obama, when he passed the Affordable Care Act, I said, you ought to take a victory lap. And he said, there's so many things going on, we don't have time to
Okay.
take a victory lap.
Okay.
As a consequence, no one knew what the detail of the legislation was. They don't know a lot of the detail of what we pass. So the difference is, I'm going to be out on the road a lot, making the case around the country with my colleagues who are up for re-election and others, making the case of what we did do and what we want to do, what we need to do. And so I don't think I've overpromised at all, and I'm going to stay on this track. You know, one of the things that I remember, and I'll end this with, I was talking with, Jim Clyburn, who was a great help to me in the campaign in South Carolina. And Jim, when he endorsed me, and there was a clip on television in the last couple of days of Jim, and it said that we want to make things accessible and affordable for all Americans. That's care. That's education. That's prescription drugs. That's making sure you have access to all the things that everybody else has. We can afford to do that. We can't afford not to do it.
To razor
So I tell my Republican
from the diving
friends,
board.
here I come. This is going to be about what are you for? What are you for? And I'll lay out what we're for.
That was such weak sauce. What weak beer.
You mentioned
what
your Republican
trash.
colleagues, but right now your top two legislative priorities, your social spending package and
Oh
voting
my
rights
God.
legislation, are stalled, blocked by your
Here
own
we go,
party
good.
after
That
months
was a
of
great first question,
negotiation.
Zeke.
You are only guaranteed control of Washington for one more year before the midterms. Do you need to be more realistic and scale down these priorities in order to get something passed?
No, I don't think so. When you say more realistic, I think it's extremely realistic to say to people,
Biden said he
Because
outperformed what
let me
anybody
back
thought
up.
would happen. Unbelievable.
you all really know the politics of this country and your networks and others. You spend a lot of time, which I'm glad you do, polling this data, determining what the American people's attitudes are, et cetera. American people overwhelmingly agree with me on prescription drugs. They overwhelmingly agree with me on the cost of education. They overwhelmingly agree with me on early education. They overwhelmingly go on the list on child care.
Yeah.
And so
What else do
we just
Americans
have
agree
to
with you
make
on?
the case of what we're for and what
On
the
you
other
leaving
team's
office,
not.
actually.
Look, we knew all along that a lot of
A
this was
plurality of
gonna be
Americans
an
want you to
uphill
leave
fight.
office or
And
resign.
one of the ways to
according
do
to
this
recent
is to
pollings.
make sure we make the contrast as clear as we can. And one of the things that I think is we're going to have to do is just make the case. I don't think there's anything unrealistic about what we're asking. I'm not asking for castles in the sky. I'm asking for practical things the American people have been asking for a long time. a long time.
Practical
and I think
things.
we can get it done.
Like the federal takeover of
You're not going to
elections.
scale down any of these priorities. But
To
so far,
institute
that
voter fraud?
strategy isn't working. You haven't been able to get some of these big legislative
Well,
ticket
I got
items
two
done.
real big ones done, bigger than any president has ever gotten in the first year.
But currently, Mr. President, your spending package, voting rights legislation, they're not going anywhere. So
That's true.
is there anything that you are confident
true.
you can get signed into law before the midterm elections?
That's true.
Yes,
So you
I'm
just admitted it.
confident we can get pieces, big chunks of the Build Back Better law signed into law. And I'm confident that we can take the
How?
case to the American people
Question.
that the people
How?
they should be voting for, who are going to oversee whether the elections in fact are legit or not, should not be those who are being put up by the Republicans to determine that they're going to be able to change the outcome of the election. So whether or not we can actually get an election, and by the way, I haven't given up. We haven't finished the vote yet on what's going on voting rights. And the
You
John
just said
Lewis
you're
bill and
giving
others. But so
You just said
Look,
you're
this
giving
is-
up. You said, I agree,
I've
when
been
she said you're not
engaged
going to get
a
this
long
done.
time in public policy, and I don't know many things that have been in one fell swoop.
Unbelievable.
I think the most important thing to do is try to inform, not educate, inform the public of what's at stake.
Listen to him try to remember the talking.
Terms, and let them make judgments and let them know who's for them and who's against them, who's there and who's not there, and make that the case. And that's what I'm going to be spending my time doing in this off-year election.
You mentioned Republicans and reaching out to them. Some Republicans who may be open to major changes on voting rights, for instance, like Mitt Romney, he says he never even received a phone call from this White House. Why
Well,
not?
I like look, Mitt Romney's a straight guy. He's
He's a
one of the
straight
things
guy?
that we're doing, I was trying to make sure we got everybody on the same page in my party on this score. And I didn't call many Republicans at all. The fact that I admit is a serious guy. I think we can get things done. I think I predict to you they'll get something done on the electoral reform side of this. But rather than judge what's going to get done and not get done, all I can say is I'm going to continue to make the case why it's so important to not turn the electoral process over to political persons who are silly to change the outcome of elections. Allison Harris, please.
Look, he's calling from the reporters in the book. He has a book. He calls from
Thank
the
you, Mr.
report.
Voting Rights
Credible.
legislation. If this isn't passed, do you still believe the upcoming election will be fairly conducted and its
What's up to the
results will be
3,000 people
legitimate?
watching on Rumble?
Well,
What up,
it
my
all
people?
depends on whether or not we're able to make the case to the American people that some of this try to. And
Unbelievable.
it's one thing.
This
look,
man has done more damage
maybe I'm just
to the integrity of our
being,
election.
too much of an optimist. Remember how we thought not that many people were going to show up to vote in the middle of a pandemic? We had the highest voter turnout in the history of the United States of America. Well, I think if, in fact, no matter how hard they make it for minorities to vote, I think you're going to see them willing to stand in line and defy the attempt to keep them from being able to vote. I think you're going to see the people we're trying to keep from being able to show up, showing up and making the sacrifice that needs to be made in order to change the law back to what it should be. But it's going to be difficult. I make no bones about that. It's going to be difficult. But we're not there yet. We've not run out of options yet, and we'll see how this moves.
And on Omicron and education, teachers are in revolt in so many places. Parents are at odds over.
By the
You
way,
say
Joe-
we're not going to go back
Joe
to closing
Biden-
schools. You said that just moments
Joe
ago.
Biden said Mitt Romney wants
yet
to
they're
put people
closing in some
back in
areas.
chains,
What do you
minorities
say
back
to
in
those
chains?
Teachers and
By the way-
principals and parents about school closings, and what can your
Just a reminder,
administration do?
because he was
to
just
help
asked
make
about
up
Mitt
for learning
Romney
loss
and said,
for
"Oh,
students?
Mitt
First of all,
Romney,
I put
blah, blah,
in
blah."
perspective the
No,
question you asked.
he said when Mitt
Very
Romney was running for
few
president, that he wants.
schools are closing.
Oh, he's whispering
Over
again.
95% are still open. So you all phrase the questions when people, I don't think it's deliberate on your part, but you phrase the question when anyone watches this on television. My God, there must be, all those schools must be closing. What are we going to do?
Creepy
95%
dementia
are
grandpa
still open.
whisper.
Number one.
Creepy
Number two,
dementia grandpa
idea
whisper.
that parents don't think it's important for their children to be in school and teachers know it as well. That's why we made sure that we had the ability to provide the funding through the Recovery Act, through the act that the first act we passed, to be able to make sure schools were able to be
Biden
safe.
is the most arrogant,
So
out-of-touch
we have
politician in
the
American
ventilation systems
history.
available for them. We have the way they scrub down laboratories and I mean the laboratories kids go to the bathroom,
Oh.
cafeterias.
Don't talk about
buses,
kids
et
going to the
cetera.
bathroom, you
All that
creepy
money's there.
old cretin.
Billions of dollars made available. It's there.
You old
Not
diseased
every
crypt
school
keeper.
district has used it as well as it should be used.
Disgusting.
It's there. And so, in addition to that, there is now another $10 billion for testing of
Why the
students in
whisper?
schools. So I think as time goes on,
What if
it's
I
much
did my
more
show
likely you're going to see
like
that
this?
number go back
But
up
I
to
get no
95%, back up to 98, 99%. But the outfit,
What if I whisper?
the individuals of
Would
the
you listen to
district
me?
that says we're not going to be open is always going to get, and I'm not
This
being
is how I
critical
do
of
my
any of
show
you,
on
it's always going to
OnlyFans.
get front page. It's always going to be the top of the news. But let's put it in perspective. 95, as high as 98% of the schools in America are open, functioning, and capable of doing the job.
This guy just
how
got
about,
his
Jen
ass
Epstein?
handed to him in the Supreme Court, trying to lock you out of your job. And now he's bragging about schools being
Advisors
open.
have warned that Russia is now ready to attack Ukraine. But there's still little unity among European allies about what a package
one
of
can
sanctions
understand you in your
against
mask.
Moscow would look like. If the U.S. and NATO aren't willing to put troops on the line to defend
I merely
Ukraine,
adopt-
American allies
you
can't
merely
agree on a
adopted the
sanctions
duck.
package.
I was
Hasn't
born
the
in
U.S.
it.
and the West lost nearly all of its leverage over Vladimir Putin? And given how ineffective sanctions have been in deterring Putin in the past, why should the threat of new sanctions give him pause?
Well, because he's never seen.
Here comes the
sanctions
Putin
like
answer.
The ones I promised.
Oh,
would be
yeah, here comes
imposed
tough
if he
Biden.
moved,
Oh.
number one. Number two, we're in a situation
I'm going to
where
take on Putin.
Vladimir Putin is about to. We've had very frank discussions, Vladimir Putin and I,
This is the
and the idea that NATO is not going to be united, I don't buy. I've spoken to every major NATO leader. We've had the NATO-Russian summit. We've had the OSCE
Russians
has met, et cetera.
have an
And
actual
so I
PP
think what you're
dossier
gonna
on
see
Hunter Biden.
is that
That's why I'm going to bend
Russia
over
will
and
be
give
held
Vladimir
accountable
Putin every
if it
single
invades.
thing
And it
that he
depends
wants.
on what it does. It's one thing if it's a minor incursion and then we end up having a fight about what to do and not do, et cetera. But if they actually do what they're capable of doing with the force amassed on the border, it is going to be a disaster for Russia if they further invade Ukraine, and that our allies and partners are ready to impose severe cost and significant harm on Russia and the Russian economy. And, you know, we're going to fortify our NATO allies. I told them on the eastern flank, if in fact
Watch
he
him
does
read.
invade,
He's
we're
reading.
going to.
Look
I've
at-
already
look at
shipped
the-
over $600
Look at the
million
dais. He's reading.
worth of sophisticated equipment, defensive equipment, to the Ukrainians. The
Real
cost
tough
of
guy.
going into Ukraine in terms of physical loss.
He has
of
to
life.
read what he's going to do. Clown
They'll-
world. Clown
they'll
world.
be able to prevail
It's a
over
clown
time,
world.
but it's going to be heavy. It's going to be real. It's going to be consequential. In addition to that, Putin has a
Clown
stark
world.
choice. He either de-escalation or diplomacy, a confrontation of the consequences. And look, I think you're going to see.
There he reads
For
again.
example, everybody talks about how Russia has control over the energy supply that Europe absorbs. Well, guess what? That money that they earn from that makes about 45% of their economy. I don't see that as a one-way street. They go ahead and cut it off. It's like my mother used to say, you're biting your nose off to spite your face. It's not like they have all these wonderful
Bite
choices out there.
your nose off to spite
I
your
spoke
face.
with the Prime Minister of Finland. And, we're talking about concern on the part of Finland and Sweden, Russia is doing. The last thing that Russia needs
Bite
is
your nose
Finland
off
deciding
to spite your
change
face.
its
Did I hear that
status. They didn't say
correctly?
they're going to do that. But they're talking about what is going on and how it is being. We're finding ourselves in a position where I believe you'll see that there'll be severe economic consequences. It involves dollar denominations. If they invade, they're going to pay their banks will not be able to deal in dollars. So there's a lot. My conversation with Putin, and we've been
Biden is minimizing
we have
Russia's
no
invasion
problem
into the
understanding
Ukraine.
one another. He has no problem understanding me, nor me him. And
He's reading
in direct
pre-selected answers,
conversations
questions.
you've occupied before.
This man
other
is a
countries.
farce.
But the price has been extremely high.
It's an illegitimate joke. There he whispers again.
You can go in and over time, at great loss and economic loss, go in and occupy Ukraine. But how many years? 1, 3, 5, 10? What is that going to take? What toll does that take? It's real. It's consequential. So this is not all just a cakewalk for Russia. Militarily, they have overwhelming superiority as it relates to Ukraine. But they'll pay a stiff price immediately, near term, medium term, and long term if they do it. I'm sorry.
Scripted
Okay,
pablum. Scripted pablum, ladies and gentlemen. Watch
Data
him
science, New
fumble
York
with his
Times.
note cards. Look at him fumble, trying to figure out
Thank you.
ball
I
on
wanted to
next.
follow up on
Pre-selected
your
questions,
answer there,
pre-selected
about
answers.
Russia and Ukraine. When you were in Geneva in June, you said to us about President Putin, I think the last thing he wants now is a Cold War. Now, since then, of course, you've seen him gather these troops, 100,000 troops around Ukraine. Your Secretary of State said today he thought
81
he could
million votes.
invade at any moment. You've seen the cyber
Remember,
attacks.
81 million
And
votes.
you've seen the demand that he have a sphere of influence in which you would withdraw all American troops and nuclear weapons from what used to be the Soviet bloc. So I'm wondering if you still think that the last thing he wants is a Cold War. Has your view of him changed in the past few months? And if it has, and he does invade, would your posture be to really move back to the kind of containment policy that you saw so often when you were still in the Senate?
The answer is that
Joe Biden said there'd
think
be
he
a
still does
minor
not want
incursion.
any
A
full-blown
minor
war.
incursion.
Number one. West
Sam?
test the United States and NATO
What was that?
as significantly as he can. Yes, I think he will. But I think he'll pay a
Hey, guys.
serious and dear price for it.
Welcome to our studio.
He doesn't think now. will cost
Tune in
him
for
what it's
our
gonna cost
OnlyFans later.
him. And I think he'll regret having done it. Now, whether or not, I think that, how can I say this?
He's broken. His brain broke. Look,
I
he's
think
broken.
that
His brain broke.
he is dealing with
Look,
what I believe he thinks is the most tragic thing that's happened to Mother Russia. in
Mother
that
Russia?
the Berlin Wall came down, the empire has been lost. The
Did you
Nero
just call it
blood has
Mother
gone
Russia?
down, The Soviet Union has been
This asshat.
split. But think about what he has. He has 8 time zones, a burning tundra that will not freeze again naturally, a situation where he has a lot of oil and gas. but
He's
he is
simping
trying
for
to find his
Putin.
place in the world between China and the West.
Because Putin has an actual
And
PP
so
dossier on
I'm not
his
so
kid.
sure that he has
Listen to this diseased, believable man.
is,
He's broken
certain
again.
What he's going to do. My guess is he will move in. He has to do something. And by the way, I've indicated to him the 2 things he said to me that he wants guarantees on. 1, Ukraine will never be part of NATO. And 2, that NATO or there will not be strategic weapons
Oh my
stationed
God.
in Ukraine. Well, we can work out something on the second piece, pretending what he does along the Russian line as well, the Russian border in the European area of Russia. On the first piece, we have
Oh
a
my
number of
God.
treaties internationally and in Europe that suggest that you get to choose who you want to be with. But the likelihood that Ukraine is going
This
to
is
join
fine.
NATO in the near term is based on much
This is
more
fine.
work they have to do in
Yeah.
terms of democracy and a few other things going on there.
This is fine.
And whether or not the major allies in the world are
It's the
Ukraine
meme.
in right now.
The
So there's
dog
room to
with the
work if he
coffee
wants to
in the
do
house
that.
on fire.
But I think, as usual, he's going to I probably shouldn't go any further, but badly.
Like you're offering some way out here, some off-ramp, and it sounds like what it is at least an informal assurance
It's
that NATO
the
is
spinning
not
thing
gonna,
that happens on your
take in
Mac.
Ukraine
Right inside of
anytime in the next
Brandon's
few
head.
decades, and it sounds like you're saying
Did
we
you
would
hear that
never put
pathetic
nuclear
answer? Oh
weapons
my God.
there. He also wants us to move all of our nuclear weapons out of Europe and not have troops rotating through the old Soviet bloc. Do you think there's space for there as well?
No, there's not space for that. We won't permanently station, but the idea we're going to actually increase troop presence in Poland or Romania, et cetera, if in fact he moves. Because we have a sacred obligation in Article 5 to defend those countries. They are part of NATO. We don't have that obligation relative to great concern about what happens in Ukraine.
Can we ask about our border, please? We've had 3 questions so far
Maureen,
about Ukraine's
this
border.
is
Who the hell cares? Let's talk about our
Thank you, Mr.
border.
President, I wanted to follow up on your comment on Build Back Better and also ask you a question about the pandemic. You
Can we
said
talk
that
about
you're
our
confident
border?
you can
Corporate
pass
media
big
is
chunks of Build Back
trash.
Better this year.
Corporate
Does that
media
wording
is
mean
the
that you are
problem.
Thinking about, you're looking at
This is
breaking
trash.
the package up into individual portions. And then on the pandemic, now that the Supreme Court has blocked the vaccination or test rule for larger businesses, are you reconsidering lights as a way to boost vaccination rates?
Okay, here we
Now,
go.
Look,
SCOTUS.
first of all, on the last part of the question, the Supreme Court decision, I think, was a mistake, but you still see thousands and thousands of people who work for
You
major
lost
corporations
6-3.
having to be tested as a consequence of the decision made by the corporation, not by the standard ISET that is there. I think you'll see that increase, not decrease, number one. What was the first part of your question?
On your comment that you made that you're confident
Yes.
that major chunks of Build Back
Yes.
Better can pass, are you breaking it up? Does that mean-
Yes, it's clear to me that that we're going to have to probably break it up. I think that we can get.
What was
and
your
I've been
first
talking
question, he
to
says?
A number of my colleagues on the Hill. I think it's clear that we would be able to get support for the $500+ billion for
There's no free press.
energy
These
and the
people are
environment
jokes.
issues that are there.
These
Number
people
one.
disgust me.
Number two, I know that the 2 people who've opposed, on the Democratic side at least, support a number of the things that are in there. For example, Joe Manchin
Unbelievable.
strongly supports early education, 3 and 4 years of age, strongly supports that. There
Sam,
is
talk to me in the
strong
chat.
support
What's up?
for, I think, a number of the way in which to pay for these, pay for this proposal. So I think there is. I'm not going to negotiate against myself as to what should and shouldn't be in it, but I think we can break the package up, get as much as we can now, and come back and fight for the rest later. Ken, Wall Street Journal, Ken Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask you about the economy. As you said earlier, Americans are feeling the squeeze of inflation. Oil prices have been at about a 7-year high recently. How long should Americans expect to face higher prices when they're at the grocery store, when they're at the gas pump? Is this something that they're going to see into the summer, into next fall? And separately, you talk about the importance of the Fed, but isn't that an acknowledgement that you're limited in what you can do if you're relying on the Fed to make decisions and you're unable to get a Build Back Better proposal through? Aren't you simply limited in what you can do to deal with inflation?
Well, look, as you know, Ken,
That was bad mask etiquette,
inflation
sir.
has
You need to pull your
everything
mask
do
up over
with
your
the
nose.
supply chain. And
Inflation
I
is
think
what?
what you're seeing is that
Dude,
we've
this
been
guy
able
is
to
such a
make
piece of work.
progress on speeding up the access to materials. For example, 1/3 of the increase in cost of living is the cost of automobiles. The reason automobiles have skyrocketed in price is because of the lack of computer chips. So we have the capacity. And we're going to do everything in our power to do it, to become self-reliant on the computer chips that we need in order to be able to produce more automobiles. That's underway. We've already passed, within the context of another bill, money for that in the House of Representatives, before the House of Representatives now. But I think there's a way we can move to, if we can move to get, for example, that one thing done, it can make a big difference in terms of the cost of, the total cost of living. Now, with regard to the whole issue of energy prices, that gets a little more complicated, but you saw what happened when I was able to convince everyone from including China, India, a number of other countries to agree with us to go into their version of their petroleum reserve, to release more into the market. So that brought down the price about 12, 15 cents a gallon, some places more. There's going to be a reckoning along the line here as to whether or not we're going to continue to see oil prices continue to go up in ways that are going up now relative to what impact that's going to have on the producers. And so it's going to be hard. I think that's the place where most middle-class people, working-class people get hit the most. They pull up to a pump and all of a sudden, instead of paying $2.40 a gallon, they're paying $5 a gallon. That's going to be really difficult. But so we're going to continue to work on trying to increase oil supplies that are available. And I think there's ways in which we can be of some value added in terms of the price of gas, natural gas and the like, to take the burden off the European countries that are now totally dependent on Russia. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard. But I think that we have to deal with, for example, like I said, you have a circumstance where people are paying more for a pound of hamburger meat than they ever paid. Well, one of the reasons for that is you don't have that many folks out there that are the ones that are got the big four controlling it all. And so you're going to see more and more, we're going to move.
What the hell did you say about
allow
hamburger?
more smaller operations to come in and be able to engage in buying and providing the access.
We don't have that many people out there that know how to make hamburger?
meat,
That's why prices are going up.
than exists now. But it's going to be
That's why
now,
hamburger
you
prices are going up,
assume
ladies and
the
gentlemen,
reason you
because
said
we
it,
don't
for
have that many
example,
vaccinated farmers out
relates
there.
to
What a
what
hamburger
those,
is.
17
That's right.
Nobel laureate economists said that if in fact we